you almost start to see past all the bull and start to lean into what is actually truth.
If we are moving into this different time on planet Earth, you can't bring that trauma forward with us. I died and came back, and I had a dark night of the soul. It was several years of being very sick and very addicted to end-of-life pain management, and then dying on the toilet of a fatal drug overdose of 28 different medications, cocktail. We're going through that dark night of the soul where we have to confront and look at what we haven't been willing to see before.
Guy here, welcome to my podcast, Let It In. Excuse my voice, I'm day 4 on our 5-day Live in Flow retreat here in Australia. You can actually see the octagon behind me in these beautiful lands. Look at this. This is in the rainforest of Australia. If you know Australia, it's kind of like near the border of New South Wales and Queensland, inland. Anyway, I digress. My beautiful guest this week is Alysa Rushton. And it's the second time she's been on the podcast. She's come back. I certainly encourage you to check out her first podcast where we really dive into her story and her near-death experience, which was phenomenal. And she's come back on the show and we really build upon that last conversation. I love the way Alysa breaks things down and explains things around frequency, vibration, and DNA and our biology and our bodies, and how we can actually embrace more of those frequencies. I mean, this is what we do here inside these walls of the octagon as well. It's phenomenal what the human body is capable of if we taught the right tools and how to apply that in our lives. Let me know where you are in the world if you're watching this on YouTube, and let me know what you think of this podcast with Alysa and myself. I loved it, and I certainly love to get your thoughts as well. And depending on where you are in the world, of course, we'll be running a retreat back in this place in January 2026. It's the beginning of September now, 2025. It is over half full. It's probably going to sell out in the next few weeks, to be honest with you. And we will be in Croatia this November as well, for any of you Americans, or if you're living in Europe and you fancy a trip to Split in Croatia in November, we have some spots left there as well. Other than that, there's some free resources below if you want to find out more about what we do and join a bunch of like-minded people that love this work. Anyway, much love from me. Enjoy this podcast. It's awesome. Well, we're recording. Alysa, welcome back to the podcast, my lovely. So nice to see you.
Oh my gosh, it's so amazing to be with you, Guy, and your incredible audience. You know, it's been really fun to watch this audience grow and grow, and I just love reading through the comments and just seeing where everybody's at. So it's just a great pleasure to be with everybody today.
Yeah, and I wanted to kick off because obviously you've been on the podcast before, and we've really dived into your story, and we've dived into many of your aspects of your near-death experience and your own personal awakening. And I'm sure we'll touch on those today as well, because there'll be many new listeners. But what I was feeling called to ask you, which is different to how I normally start the podcast, is, but through your own awakening and what you've experienced and learned, how do you navigate your way through life at the moment? And I mean that from a bigger vantage point, because it's very easy to get caught in what's happening on the planet right now. You know, there's war, there's even mass genocide happening at the moment. There's so much fear being projected. I mean, from Australia looking in at the United States at the moment, and the way the media are portraying certain things, it feels like wild. And if we get caught up too much in that, we can feel quite helpless along these things. So I was wondering, how do you operate? What is your mechanics for how you think, how you feel, and how you navigate this terrain?
Wow, I love that you started off with the biggest question of the decade, because it's a lot going on for a lot of people. There's a lot of loss happening. There's a lot of clearing out old energies. And so whenever we're clearing out old energies, it can feel like a lot. And so I just want to really be aware that people have gone through an incredible amount recently. It's what the period I always saw this period after my near-death experience. I got told that these years between 2024 and 2026 would be what I call the sandwich years, where it's the densest, thickest time of dark night of the soul for humanity. And the reason why we have that is so that we can wake up. As you guys know, who've seen my podcast here with Guy before, I died and came back, and I had a dark night of the soul that made me go through certain things and awaken to certain things. And so, as a human soul right now, that's part of what we're doing. So, to answer your question, I wanted to make sure I put it into context, because to not put it into context of literally the whole planet is going through this humongous dark night of the soul, and my personal one didn't happen overnight. It was several years of being very sick and very addicted to end of life pain management, and then dying on the toilet of a fatal drug overdose of 28 different medications cocktail. I know. And then it was the coming out of that, realizing I wanted something different and something new and something fresh. And so that's what humanity is doing right now. On a grand scale, we're going through that dark night of the soul where we have to confront and look at what we haven't been willing to see before.
Did you have to go through that on your personal journey to get it?
I love that you asked me this question, because the answer is I don't think that I did have to go through it. And there were other levels and layers that I could have also gone through. So let me put this into context from a different historical perspective. So if you look back way before our written history, we have these histories called Atlantis and Lemuria. And both of these civilizations crashed and crumbled down in devastation, completely wiped out everybody. Okay. So, human race right now is going through this collective dark night of the soul, but I don't think we have to crash all the way down. I believe actually we are here to do it differently this time, to see what's been going on, to uncover certain aspects of being human and waking up to what we really are, which, in my belief, having been on the other side, is divine in a body. You're literally God consciousness, creator consciousness in a body. And we're waking up to that. And that means we're having to deal with the parts of us that have been steeped in belief structures that say that we're not that. And so, to answer your question, I don't think we have to run it all the way into the ground this time. I believe we're actually here to do it differently. And I believe that, yes, there are some hard parts, but I actually think that this is our healing lifetime. I really, really do think that this is our healing lifetime. And that said, people are having those moments of individuated dark nights of the soul. But what I've been noticing with my clients and my students and the people that I serve is it's not happening to the level of devastation that we might think. And I also want to mention that it's not happening to the level of devastation that's being programmed in through social media, the news, and all of these things. The collective belief set wants people to believe that it's the worst possible. But I also know about this earth construct is that what you believe here will play out here. And so the most important thing at this time, and kind of coming back around to your question, is what's helping me get through is the most important thing is having a set of beliefs in place and an identity in place that can help us shift and change reality. Because here's the thing, reality we've all thought is very hard, very solid, it's not malleable at all. But really, what we're dealing with our reality is also God consciousness. It's also divine consciousness. And so when we understand that everything that we see here on planet Earth, down to your phone, the plastic, your countertop, every little bit of it is divine in physical form, is God in physical form, then we get and understand that we, the ones who are observing it, can change it, because our mere presence and how we see something changes how the reality field works. And in fact, there's a lot of research data on this. There was an incredible study done in Russia back in 1992 where DNA actually impacts the reality field around us and literally makes matter do different things based on whose DNA is in the test tube with matter.
That's fascinating. And like listening to you speak and share everything so eloquently, I do, because in my world, I walk out onto the street, I go into town, and all I don't see any of the problems per se that are being projected through social media and the noise and the news. I see genuinely nice people that I have nice conversations with. Yeah, of course we get caught up in daily life, and then even through my lens of when we run our workshops and retreats, it's all to serve. There's a service there of humanity and an exploration of how we can live more from our heart and lift our resonance and vibration. And that is my world, and that is my perception. And I live from that space. And it's like the universe, God consciousness, or whatever you want to say, reflects it back at me through that being. But I certainly had to go through a lot of inward healing and metamorphosis from caterpillar to butterfly over and over and over again, which still continues. I've just gone through another one over the last few months. But each time there's more depth to everything, and you almost start to see past all the bullshit and start to lean into what is actually truth. And that's where we can start to aim ourselves towards and live from that aspect, not, this perceived projection that almost feels like that it's constantly there to keep us small, to keep us in our boxes and be fed certain information, really.
Yeah. And you said the nugget, the secret key to life. You said it's a perceived projection. And the thing of it is that unless we utilize our projector, which is our DNA, so your DNA that is inside of you is actually informing the field. If you've ever seen how a hologram works, by the way, if you haven't, go later after you finish this podcast, look up on YouTube how a holographic fan works, and you will understand how our reality field works. So a holographic fan is a series of lights that then gets motion behind them, and whatever code is being projected out is what the lights will display given enough motion. Think about how our solar system works. There's the light, there's the earth, we swing it around, there's enough motion, aka reality, and that's how you get the reality field. And the code is held inside each of us from our DNA. It's our DNA that is actually holding the code. So to your point, once you go within and you do that inner work, you actually change how the program feeds out in to the field, and you change what comes back into your world. Your movie changes. You literally see something different. People act differently in your field. You get hearts everywhere. You get maybe more abundance than you've ever had. You get more health. You don't see the same things that you once saw. You don't even experience the same things that you once experienced. And you can see this play out. I literally saw this the other day. Myself and somebody else went to an appointment at the exact same place. We were having the exact same treatment. We had a vastly different experience. Our DNA is different. Why do we have a same service provider? We're sitting in just one chair apart from each other, and we had such a drastically different experience. And it's because there was more trauma embedded in one of us than the other. And that trauma then gets projected out. And then the service provider reflects that back to us each individually. And that is how the universe works. It's the secret code. And everybody's been so programmed into trying to fix it out here. We've been trying to put lipstick on the screen, trying to get the lipstick, versus just giving a coat here. It's a different thing, but we keep trying to fix it outside of ourselves, and that's the program in humanity that's got to break. And it's not until we figure out that we've got to go in and do the trauma healing work, because let's face it, we have generations and generations and generations of bad programs embedded in our DNA. And you see this all the time in your retreats. I know you do. You see the impacts of all of these generations of trauma. And then the work I do, we not only deal with the physical generational imprints of trauma, but we also deal with the multidimensional field, because people have lived in past lifetimes. And the thing of it is, they're not even past lifetimes. The book of you is running concurrent lifetimes. Okay. The book of you, of your soul, has, hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of pages, and they're all happening all at once. They're not waiting to be written or already written in the past. They're all in the now time. So, what we're finally learning about how DNA works is that it's a storage device for your soul. And those storage imprints from your genetics and your multidimensional field, your past lifetimes, the good and the bad, is projecting out into the world. And the minute we figure out how to clean that up is the minute we change it. And that's the work that I know you and I both love to do.
It's pretty wild, isn't it? I was only recording a podcast yesterday that Danae, she was saying that they reckon there's 24,000 ancestors, people have come before us, 24,000. And if you think of that lineage and the experiences of traumas and how that gets passed on through our field, that is wild. That is wild.
Yeah. And just understanding that it really does imprint. I mean, it's the reason why babies can come in now and they know how to work an iPad at 6 months old, because the imprint of their parents already put that in the storage banks. And the DNA is a great storage device. It actually holds the most information in the whole entire world. Like, we can get so much information stored on the DNA. But what people don't understand, and this research back in Russia in Lebdev in 1992 points to, is that people's DNA, when inserted into a tube with only particles, particles are what inform matter and what create matter, the DNA changes how the particles structure themselves. So once people really understand how I am inside here affects matter, my thoughts, my feelings, I call it flinking, my thoughts and feelings, my flinking, and my beliefs and my identity field, and my genetics all inform this field of reality. But once I know that, then I can finally work with it. I can finally become what I am calling the new soul's blueprint, because I actually know that we are being gifted with a new soul's imprint. And this is actually, we're being assisted by light itself. And by the way, light is information. For those of you who don't know, light is information. It's the fastest source of information. And if you know about how fiber optics work, right? So fiber optics is light carrying information across a wire and then reproducing information on the other side. So light carries frequency of information. And so we are being assisted by all of this new information, and it's triggering certain actions in your DNA so that you can have a different experience. Now, I will say that this triggering actually acts like a French press. Guy, have you ever used a French press
I have.
coffee?
Yeah.
Okay. So you guys know you put the coffee grounds, or maybe you use tea and you put it in the French press, and you kind of have to, at some point, you have to really squeeze down on it. But then you get this delicious elixir. Well, this is what's happening, and you guys might be feeling this, and I'd love to know in the comments below if you're feeling this. There's an incredible light pressure that comes onto the planet. It's being activated by our sun. Geophysicists understand this very much. There's a great geophysicist out there called Stefan Burns, and he actually shows you how when the sun has this solar flare, we in Hawaii, our Kilauea volcano goes off every single time. It's like instantaneously. It's time. So when you understand that we're being assisted by our sun to bring in this pressure to squeeze out all the grit of the trauma in the DNA. So it's one of the reasons why we're seeing it look so bleak out there, is because we're being pressurized. It's before the good coffee juice has been poured, and we're squeezing out all the grit in there. And so it looks a little bad. But you asked me, how do I deal with it? Well, one of the ways I deal with it is I constantly use myself as a mirror for reality. So meaning whatever I see on the outside, I use myself as a way to alchemize that. And I turn it into love and compassion. And I start to hold compassion because we've been programmed at the dimensional level, at the third dimensional level, we've been programmed to judge, and we've been programmed to hate, and we've been programmed to not find compassion. But when you start to install these higher frequencies of understanding that we're here in Earth School to learn lessons of the soul and to actually clear all of the trauma that's been held in the human DNA in this lifetime, we're here to clear it out completely. Like if you're watching this video, you literally signed up to be in this lifetime so that you could raise your hand and clear all the trauma from your DNA. Because going forward, if we are moving into this different time on planet Earth, you can't bring that trauma forward with us. You just can't take it there.
I'd like your thoughts on this as well, because in the past, I've lent into self-help, I've lent into different transformational seminars and so forth, without naming any names, and while that was beneficial and helpful, at the same time, maintaining this gratitude, maintaining this place was very challenging until I actually knew how to feel and knew how to go within my body and honor what was wanting to come through, as opposed to suppressing it. And then as then wanting to allow that feeling to be with it, it was only then am I able to maintain deeper states of gratitude and joy and love, because of the coffee grind or from the pressure that's been constantly pushing. But I'm just blown away that was never spoken of, and being able to help navigate us into these much deeper states of all the states that you speak of: compassion, kindness, heart-centered, gratitude. Do you know what I mean?
I do. And I think for me, it's a big, huge problem in the spiritual community, because I notice that a lot of people, let me just give you an example, will go to a plant medicine ceremony, or they might go to a super amazing meditation retreat. But all of that stuff is happening in the mind, and it takes you out of the body. So New Earth, the fourth dimension, fourth density, fifth dimension, whatever you want to call it, whatever your word is, happens in the body. It happens as and through you. Because if you cannot put lipstick on the screen and expect it to look good, you cannot do the work outside of yourself and expect, if you know that you are the one projecting the movie of life, then you have to deal with what's in here. And you can't really do it outside of the realms. And it's the reason why energy work doesn't really take, it works for a while, but it doesn't really take, because we're here. I call it descending consciousness. Everyone's talking about ascending, but what technically we're doing, we're descending the higher self and allowing it to come into the physical body. So I'm going to say that again for everybody. We're literally descending God consciousness, divine source energy, your higher self, your multidimensional selves. We're descending that consciousness and we're allowing it to inform the physical body and come through here. This is your projector. What this is, your body, is your subconscious mind. Your subconscious mind isn't here. It's in your nervous system. It's in your flesh. It's in your bones. It's in the very tiniest parts of your mitochondria and your DNA. And we have to bring all of that consciousness in and through the body. And once you learn to do that, that's when things start to really change and your whole world changes. And what's happening right now is that more people are holding this consciousness in and through their body, and they're kind of acting like cell towers. I used to work for the cell phone company, but back in the early 90s. And I don't know if you had a cell phone back then, but it was really hard to, you'd be on your phone and you would drop calls, even if it was one of those huge, brick phones, you would drop calls because we didn't have the cell tower coverage. But now it's pretty easy to keep your phone calls when you're moving because there's a lot of cell towers around. But people, our wiring is a lot like a cell tower. We both send and receive frequency. We send and receive information. And so once we start working on ourselves and we are clearing the trauma and we're transmuting the pain and we're sitting with our feelings and we're really reworking our identity to be aligned with the new soul blueprint, which, by the way, is a person who is empowered. It's a person who is in full sovereignty. The old blueprint was disempowerment, fear, and complete not sovereign at all. Had to reach out of themselves to get somebody else to tell them what to do, how to think, how to act, how to look, how to heal, how to vote, how to do with their money, all of that stuff. No, we're literally flipping the coin over, right? We're coming into something really different, which is divine in physical form first as a baseline. We are divine in a body. We are sovereign beings. And we're getting to experience this new aspect of ourselves. And many people, such as yourself, I know you're already there. Like, you're already in this place where you know this and you're operating as it. Do we still have stuff to deal with? Yes, but you are taking responsibility for what happens in your life. You're not blaming people and saying, well, they did this and that makes me feel this way. You're saying, let me take a look at why I'm feeling this way. How did I contribute to feeling this way and creating this situation? So it's a totally different framework of life. And it's this beautiful, gorgeous soul blueprint that also, kind of like this crystal, we have come to think in the past that each one of us is different. And we're all wired a little bit differently, but technically we're all a fractal aspect. We're all a different facet of one source energy. And so we're coming into that awareness bit by bit. And just like making a French press coffee, it can be a little gritty at first.
First of all, thank you. I love everything you just shared, and it's such an important point, and it's something that, yeah, from my perspective, I witness a lot too. I always remember getting this piece of advice a long time ago, was that the deeper the roots, the higher the reach of the tree. And we should always be looking to, how do we deepen our roots? How do we create a greater foundation within ourselves? and then the growth of that will naturally occur. And it's always stuck with me, and which helps me, like you say, like the descension process of how do we bring more light in so we can have a physical experience and live from our own heart and sovereign being from this place. Yeah, absolutely magic. So with that, all that in mind, what was coming forward to me as you were speaking then is that people, what I'm witnessing is, are starting to nod their heads in agreement to go, yeah, I get this. But then when the rubber meets the road, when it comes to actually doing this, it can be very challenging. And we tend to then resist what is presenting itself forward, or project a story from the past onto what's wanting to come up, and give it a whole different context and meaning of what actually is going on. So my question is how do you navigate? How did you navigate that on your journey? Because I know your journey is profound. And then what is your advice, or how do you support others through that journey as well?
Yeah, I love this question so much because I too have the clients and students that come to me every day with this same question. Because I think it's really easy to get caught up in believing the mirror is actually the real. It's technically Maya. We believe that the reality that we see in front of us is really real, and we forget that we're sort of in a holographic matrix of our own making. And so I think the first piece is really coming to the understanding that you are in a field which you have a great deal of control over how it operates. So there's a great deal of difference between you understanding that you're in a plane just flying to a destination versus you are the pilot. You get to decide where the destination is. And so that's the first key code to having a different experience, is having the realization that you can shift reality. You can shift the field if you want to. The second piece is when you have that unfortunate situation, and this is where people really get caught up. Maybe somebody at work is being mean to you. Maybe a boss never appreciates you. What the old program is we make it about the boss. We make it about them, and they did this to me, and they're not treating me fairly, and they don't appreciate my work. When what we have to understand is somewhere inside of here, this glorious vessel of mine, I am running a program, an unconscious program that's trying to make itself consciousness through the reflection window of my life. So, one of the questions I have my students ask themselves, and it's just such an incredible question. If you ask yourself this question, your whole mind will be blown. And then I'm going to give you a process for this. Okay. So, you ask yourself, in order to have this experience, what is the accidental program that I would have to be running? So, using this experience of the boss, the accidental program you might be running is not feeling appreciated and valued by people of authority. And if we looked at your lineage, where would we also see that program happening? Because that's usually where the program comes from. Some of it comes from childhood trauma, true. Some of it comes from soul lessons as well in the multidimensional field. But we can usually pinpoint, oh yeah, I'm accidentally running this program. Because the other thing is that just like you're like a cell tower, you're also programmed a lot like a cell phone. In fact, if you've ever opened up a cell phone and looked at the 5G antenna, it looks suspiciously like a piece of DNA. I know.
Interesting.
I know. So, if we understand that, you know how on your phone you sometimes get a funky program and then the company will run an update and all of a sudden the phone starts behaving a little bit better? The same thing goes with our body. We have these funky programs that we didn't install consciously. We would never have agreed to install them. If someone said, "Oh, would you like the program of not being respected by authority figures?" You'd obviously would have said no. But we have those imprints because they came from our family and our genetic lines. So then once you've identified the program, then you can do the work to clear it from your body, because your body is super conscious. It's listening at all times. And if you, like a good computer programmer, can take out a bad program and input a new one, you can actually do this relatively easy and take out the old funky programs that are giving you this experience and then create something new. And I see this all the time, Guy, with my students. It's incredible. They'll realize, oh my gosh, I have this program. Maybe it's around money, or maybe it's around a relationship, and they'll delete the old program. They'll feel the feelings around it. Because what happens when you do this work, I call this divine DNA repatterning. When you do that work, it then makes you feel the feeling that was stuck. You can feel it and deal with it. And then you, just like a good computer programmer, reprogram in something that you'd prefer to have instead. And it's such an incredible process, but it requires you to stop pointing the finger outward. It requires you to stop putting the lipstick on the mirror or waiting for the mirror to smile while you've got a grumpy frown on your face. You have to do the work here first, always. Then the movie screen of your life will change. Period. It is simple as that.
So I can feel every listener's just going, well, that all sounds great, but how do I change the program then? What would be the next step?
Yeah. Well, so the first piece is identifying the program. And usually programs have subprograms. So I was working with a woman yesterday who we were working on some, her boss wasn't treating her well, but then there was some subprograms within that, and they kind of get like a little tangled knot. So it's helpful to do this with a coach or a mentor or even a friend, or journal it out, to just keep asking the question, like, what would be the program I would have to have? And what else would I have to have? And what else is going on? And usually you'll feel in your body some data coming up because now you're accessing it. And then the process I take people through the divine DNA repatterning is you use your ring and middle finger, and you locate the place on your body where you have the most sensation when you think about that topic. So in her case, I said, where do you feel the most sensation in your body when you think about your boss not being nice to you? And she's like, oh, my heart. And then I actually am a body channel, so I can feel it a little more strongly for clients than they can at times. So I said, actually, I kind of feel it just a little bit lower than your heart and right in the center. And she's like, yes, that's it. So we start tapping there and we start accessing, and we open up her code program, just like a computer programmer would do. And we do that with a series of phraseology that lets it know where we're going to clear this data from. And I start by saying, we're going to clear this from your body, your cells, your soul, your DNA, and your multidimensional field, and all the genetic lifetimes, so that literally consciousness is listening to us. And since we're programming consciousness, we can tell it where we're clearing this from. This is also a huge reason why, if you've been to energy healers, or if you've done body work and you've been working on something and it really feels intractable and you can't really get it to shift, I mean, it's shifting a little bit, but it's not like completely gone. It's because we're not clearing it on the different levels, which is the body level, the emotional level, the genetic level, the multidimensional level, and your past, your lineage level. We've got to clear it in all of those places in order for it to be clean. It's just like saying, oh, I'm going to clean my house, but I just did the living room. No, the rest of your house is still so we've got to clear it with our intention to clear that coding across all of those places. So the next time you maybe go get a body treatment, remember that nothing trumps your consciousness. You can use this when maybe you got a shoulder injury, and you've been working on that and trying to heal it. And you go in and you're getting your massage. You can just say, universe, I intend to clear this shoulder injury from my genetics. my cells, my soul, my DNA, my multidimensional field, and across all genetic lines. And then you imagine this energy just coming in and scooping out all of the trauma and all of the programs of that area of your body, and you just see it all clearing out at once. So does that make sense how we kind of clear it from the field multidimensionally, because nothing trumps?
Yeah, thank you for sharing. No, it's beautiful. It was just a loop in my mind that was I knew would be open for many people. And the thing that really you're highlighting here as well, and it can be concerning when you look out into the world, is a body awareness is actually starting to really reconnect with your body. And when you think how distracted we are in our daily lives, how the pace of life, everything is keeping us in that external. And, many people wouldn't even have stopped just to feel their breath or feel into where their lungs are or where their heart is or their kidneys, and just actually developing that relationship with themselves to be able to slowly navigate and stop giving our energy away to the boss and that victimization, and actually start turning that energy and intent inward to allow ourselves to heal. It doesn't have to be hard. It's wild,
Yeah,
isn't it?
no, it is. And in fact, there's such simple tools like that one, but also working with the mirror. So because consciousness is coming from your body, it's not coming, it's outside of you, but your body is the channel for it, and it's also the receptor for it. So if we know that the body is the one that brings consciousness in and pulls it out and sends it out, then we have to do all the work on the body. And most of the work we're doing is on the DNA and subconscious level. So, what's the fastest access to the subconscious mind? It's through the eyeballs, it's you looking at you. Is the fastest way to access your subconscious mind. You looking at you, because you're directly speaking to your identity. And so this is really cool. In fact, if you guys have seen pictures of my before pictures, I didn't always look like this. And in fact, people tell me all the time, they'll say, Alyssa, looking at you is like looking at the sunshine because you just glow. And it's true. I have this weird glow about me that goes everywhere. In fact, one of my friends, her son said, "Oh yeah, Alyssa's got aura." And I'm just laughing, but that's not because I'm special. That's because I have reprogrammed myself. And you can do this too. Literally try this. Spend the next 10 days looking at yourself in the mirror and tell yourself how beautiful you are and how radiant or how handsome or how much your eyes dazzle with love and how, plump your cheeks are, or whatever you want to say. You are reprogramming the code of your body, and your body has to match what you tell it,
Mm.
period. So I, at one time, was 240 pounds. I could only get around with a walker. I was so sick. And this is the work I did to reprogram myself, because my trajectory was still, even after my near death experience, my trajectory was still to be sick. And I got up there on the other side that I had to do things different. And they gave me all of the tools to heal myself. So I had to go and use the tools. I literally had to go do the things. It wasn't just like the spontaneous, instantaneous healing. I had to actually work, and part of that work was reprogramming my subconscious mind and looking at myself in the mirror and telling myself and visioning myself as something different than I was. And then lo and behold, like magic, I recoded myself, and now I have a really fit, healthy body. I glow. People tell me all the time, like, I'm sparkly and I look like the sunshine. And that's just because those are some of the key words that I coded in, because I was so dark and so heavy before.
Yeah. No, beautiful. What do you feel our potential is then with all of this, with this DNA upgrading, and where can we take this to? And what do you think we'll see in our lifetime?
I love that you asked this question. So there's a couple of paths that are very available for humanity right now. One path is a very AI path. It is a path of control and domination, and where humanity is even more into a place of slavery. And I don't see that happening. I actually see that dissolving and going away. There's another path where humanity kicks on all their divine DNA, where we have skills. And some of you watching might have these skills now, where we have skills of telekinesis, where we can literally shift the field and things in it with the energetics that are contained within us, where we can fly, where we can teleport, where basically we are transparent. So you can have the skills of complete, um, you know, clairvoyance, clairaudience, clairsentience, clairgustance, clairsalience. Like you can have all of the clairs turned on. In fact, that's something that they're teachable skills. I teach it inside my academy, but people are having those more and more. You will have to live a very clear life. You won't be able to hide anything from anybody because everyone will be able to tell well, how you're feeling and what you're thinking. So it's a very clear society, and a society where we are in communities, and it's very loving and heart centered and more divine in physical form, and there's an understanding. We're educating at soul level. When families have a new baby, they actually do it very consciously, and they connect with maybe 3 or 5 souls, and then they see which one is an appropriate home for that soul, and then they birth the baby into their soul plan. They educate based on the soul. They're not educating in a constructed system. In America, our education system was funded by John D. Rockefeller, who said, I don't want a nation filled with thinkers. I want a nation filled with workers. And then he funded our education system. Yes, exactly. People don't understand that. So we don't educate for the soul at all. And that's a huge problem. So I see where we're going is recognizing first and foremost that we're a soul, we're God consciousness, and we're inhabiting a physical vehicle for a period of time, and starting to run our lives as such, because your life that is soul led is such a different life. Everything's intentional, everything becomes that sacred act. You know, from pouring a glass of water and drinking it, and asking that crystalline structure just infuse your body. You can change the flavor and taste of water. You can intake nutrients in different ways into your body, and you can harness light. Like every morning, there's a reason why my skin glows so much. Every morning I do this process called light pulling, where I do some breath work and I consciously pull in light into every cell of my body, and it then radiates from me because my cells are actually holding more light. I'm informing my cells to hold more light. In fact, I got COVID. Can I say that? Can I say
You
COVID? I
can.
got the Okay. I got COVID a couple, 3 years ago, and I got really sick, and I didn't ever think I would be sick again after my near-death experience, but I got really sick. And I hit this point where I went outside, because I used to work for corporate America. So I went outside and I decided to hold a staff meeting with my cells and the viruses and bacteria in my body. And I said, hey, everybody, let's have a staff meeting. We all got to get together and work for this body. And I appreciate you all for being here. And I'm wondering today if I could get your cooperation to working towards the highest good of this body. And I waited for a yes. And then I listened for those other parts of the body that were like, yeah, no. And then I asked those parts of the body, what do you need to work for the highest good of this body? And then I heard, we need more rainbow light. And I was like, okay, you want more rainbow light? I can give you that. So then I just made a practice of pulling in more of that sunshine, early morning light, and squinting in my eyes. And they told me a couple other things too, but I started to do those things for my body. But to your point, Guy, that's the piece that we're missing. We are missing the piece of understanding our body is consciousness. Even the viruses, even the bacteria, even the parts of ourselves that we don't think are positive for us, we can talk to those parts and ask them to actually work for our highest good. And if they're not willing, we can ask them, well, what would you need so that you can? And once you start to work with life on that level, for your own body, but also for Mama Earth and the things in your world that aren't working well, start to have this conscious conversation. You get that everything in life, just like you and I, we came here today and we were having a little internet troubles. And then we both said, okay, hey, thank you, angels, for this fast internet connection. And it's been perfect ever since.
I know, right?
So right? It's a consciousness that we're working with. And it's, I think, mostly about learning to work with that consciousness, learning to understand. Just like if you were once a passenger on the plane and now learning to pilot the plane, you'd have to learn some tools to be the pilot. But we're coming in and we're in pilot school right now, and we're learning to fly the plane of our life.
Beautiful. Before we wrap up the podcast, I want to ask you, what would your advice be to people that are maybe hearing the call? Because they would, I mean, we're nearly 50 minutes into a podcast. If they're still here with us, they're clearly on the path of exploration, right? But turning it from just an informational intake, like a podcast junkie, a book junkie, a course junkie, whatever it might be, oh, I got to do that one more thing, to actually leaning into where the resistance points are and saying yes to that, as opposed to running, avoiding it or postponing it for another 6 months or a year or whatever it might be. Because we're very good at stalling too. And then, of course, until the pain gets so loud, we have to listen.
Yeah, I love this question. So, it's not about information alone doesn't cause transformation. I used to watch workout videotapes while I was sitting on the couch when I was 2 years old. I know, it's the funniest thing I would, and I felt like I did something. I was like, I really, right? Have you done that? Somebody here watching, I hope, has done that. I hope it's not just me, but I'm saying that because you feel like you did something. So if you guys are watching this right now, my encouragement to you is pick a practice and start embodying it. Maybe it's that breath work practice, of just taking 10 to 30 breaths through your mouth and then doing a breath hold and noticing the spacious silence that comes. Maybe it's doing some light pulling, like I shared, and squinting down your eyes, going outside in the morning and just setting your intention to give your cells all the rainbow light so that they can thrive. Because, by the way, light tells your cells what to do. And we all have so much weird, funky blue light that our cells are like, what do we do? This is weird. We're not getting what we need. But literally, the sunlight first thing in the morning turns on protective processes in your cells. And it also turns on repair processes. So you can just give your cells all of the frequency and the coding to start to turn on your crystalline DNA. So pick a practice and stick with it. Because the other thing is, consistency is key. I watch the ocean every single day. I live by the ocean. I go to the ocean every day. The tide goes in, the tide comes out. The tide goes in, the tide goes out. It's consistent. It always happens. There's never a day when the tide just stays out and keeps going out, out, out. No, it always happens. And so the more consistency you can give your physical body with some of these ascension practices or descension practices, the more you can work with the consciousness of your body, and don't just be what I call a healer hopper, where you're hopping from tool to tool to tool to tool to tool because it hasn't worked yet. Usually it's because we haven't worked the tool long enough. It's not that we need a different tool or another tool. It's that we haven't gone deep enough into it. So pick one thing and start working with it. And you could even start with something simple. Just wake up every morning just hands on heart and belly, and just ask your body, hello, lovely, what do you need today? What is it that you need today? And just even asking that one little itty bitty question can open up, because your body does want a two-way conversation with you. And once you start treating it as somebody conscious, it's so huge. It's like if you've had kids, if you've ever had kids and you just didn't talk to them and you just treated them like, oh, I'm not talking to you. And then all of a sudden you start asking them, well, what do you think about this? And what's your opinion about this? All of this whole world opens up. But your body's the same way. The whole world can open up to you. We just have to remember that your body is super consciousness. We have to learn how to talk to it and make a practice talking to it.
Beautiful. No, absolutely. Where can people find out more about your work, Alysa, if they want to check you out? I'll make sure there's links in the show notes below, but be sure to say it out loud.
Yeah, one of the best places you can go, I have a free toolkit. It's called the Raise Your Vibration Toolkit.com. And it gives you a lot of the practices that I use to get my life out of the ditch, to go from 240 pounds and on all the drugs to really healthy and living a pretty fabulous life, dare I say, here in Hawaii. So where I get to have magic and miracles every day. So these practices are really simple, and they're ones that have really worked for me and thousands of students. So yeah, I hope you guys take me up on that. But more so, I want to hear from you in the comments. So definitely, what's your question, or what's the thing that really sparked for you in this interview? I read every single one of your comments. I do this work for you guys. It's the reason why I came back to this planet during this time, so that I could be here and show up and walk this journey with you.
Oh, beautiful. Thank you, Alysa. And I'll make sure that there's a link to our first podcast that we did where you cover your story in depth as well. That's there, which is mind-blowing. Absolutely mind-blowing. What a podcast. Alysa, thank you so much for coming on the show. As always, it's this beautiful conversation, and I love everything you share and what you're doing and what you represent. It's been fantastic, my lovely. Thank you so much.
Oh, you're so welcome. And remember, you guys, this is your time. This is your time to really focus on the outcome that you want. Look, I get there's a lot of crazy stuff going on in the world, but the more you focus on what you want to create and the life that you want, I promise you, this is your healing lifetime. This is the lifetime that you will bring it in, but you got to focus on it. You got to actively commit to creating it. But guess what? If you do, you've got this.